Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. And there was a big document dump today for the Las Vegas shooting around noon, 12:30, 1 o'clock. And it's 1,500 pages. This is it here. It's 10 different PDF files. I haven't read through it. I mean, it's 1,500 pages, but I have gone through all the various reports and, basically what everyone else has gone through. And there's a ton of interesting stuff. It's a lot of it's witness accounts of people inside the venue, people reporting shots fired, a cleaning lady, Jesus Campos. There's a report, a jailhouse interview with somebody who met with Paddock a month before the shooting. That's very interesting, and he tells of what some of the things Paddock was saying about anti-government stuff, government wanting to confiscate your guns, FEMA camps, and I'll get into specifics in a minute. So, there's a variety of stuff here. There is a lot of what I see is I think there's a lot of mistakes, and I've been listening to Doug Papa's interview that Aces Wild 2, his backup channel has posted. It's like an hour long, and it's basically just nonstop information from beginning to end. It's the same dude, I think, who interviewed Sheriff Lombardo for like that 2 hour interview. I'm not even sure, but I believe that's the voice I hear interviewing Doug Papa, who's a former police officer and I didn't realize he was he worked for security for the hotels, the casinos in Las Vegas for like the last 20 years. In fact, he was head of security at the Riviera, I believe, and he's a reporter too, and he's been following the story. He probably knows more about the Las Vegas shooting investigation than anybody I've heard talk about it. So, but one of the things he said in that interview is that it's very possible that the reason Sheriff Lombardo resisted letting this stuff come out, letting this be why he fought making this public, is because it might reveal a lot of mistakes or sloppiness or stuff like that, whatever you want to call it, because of, I mean, he was basically pointing to, for instance, the telephonic warrant application where the sergeant, I think, he's calling the judge in the middle of the night to get a warrant to go into 135, and his first account was that they had seen Paddock commit suicide, and that's why they needed the warrant to get in there, and that was, a huge error that got revealed because the affidavits and warrants were eventually made public, and that revealed that. So just seeing the various reporters in Vegas and that have now gotten this information quickly comb through it and starting to provide it into various snippets, I can kind of see mistakes that just don't add up. And me personally, I believe that it's Paddock that just did this by himself. But I'll just show you some of the mistakes that I'm talking about. It's a very long description. Why don't I just go right to, I think this was the most interesting thing, which was this individual who apparently was going to sell Stephen Paddock, and met with him outside of a sporting goods store a month before the shooting, sell him a schematic on how to convert an AR-15 into an automatic weapon. And actually, Paddock wanted him to do it. He wanted to hire him for like $500 to convert whatever, 5 or 8 or 10 AR-15s into fully automatic weapons. The guy didn't want to do it. He basically says, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison, whatever. But even that, what, not just what was said to the guy claims, what Paddock was talking about, but the whole thing is odd, and I'm not trying to, make this into something, but it's just peculiar. There's various things that, just kind of jump out at me as strange. So let me just try to read through some of it, even though it's very difficult to read. All right, so here's this guy, and he says, a man who about a month before the shooting offered to sell Paddock for $40 schematics for an AR-15 that could be converted from a semi-automatic weapon to an automatic weapon, said Paddock would carry on about anti-government stuff that included FEMA camps and Hurricane Katrina, and supposedly, well, he goes on. That was just a dry run for law enforcement and military to start kicking down doors and confiscating guns, the man quoted Paddock as saying. he was kind of fanatical about this stuff. I just figured he's another internet nut, you know, watching too much of it and believing too much of it, said the man. Supposedly, this man, it was a jailhouse interview, who had been arrested on a possession charge, a non-gun related possession charge. That's what it says somewhere. Um, and it also says, not here in this article, but in the Yahoo thing, that the man said he met with Paddock outside a Las Vegas sporting goods store after posting an online ad to sell schematics to convert semi-automatic guns to fire automatically. I guess so. I mean, that's what it says. But I just never heard of that before. Somebody posting an ad, to sell schematics to convert semi-automatic guns to automatic guns. Yeah, I don't know. So, but that's what it says there. So, back to the guy's description of what Paddock was saying. Said the man, who claimed at the time to be unemployed, an unemployed chef who had become desperate for cash because of a trust fund had dwindled out. Okay. The man was arrested a couple days after October 1st on a possession charge, non-gun related, and was interviewed in Clark County Detention Center on November 7th. Paddock offered the man $500 to make multiple AR-15s that could be converted from semi-automatic weapons to automatic weapons for him. The man's response: "I'm too old to spend the rest of my life in federal prison." Paddock turned down the offer to take the schematics, according to the statement. The man said, Paddock also said, "Somebody has to wake up America, or wake up the American public, and get them to arm themselves. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made." I don't know. So the man connected the October 1 shooting with the hurricanes that had just happened. The special agents and local police talked to everyone from bussers to executive casino hosts to find patterns and mannerisms. There's also, and this dude has him and other reporters from the same KTNV have poured through the documents. And here's some of the mistakes I wanted to point out, and I think these things are just mistakes, but, one of them is the fact that Marilou Danley, according to the documents, was with Paddock 2 days before the shooting. And that contradicts everything that we've been told so far. And I think it's just a mistake. I do. Because, if you look back at several reports of her being out of the country, and some people believe that, she went out of the country, then came back, then went out again. I don't believe that. I mean, that's personally, I just don't believe that. But, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, obviously. So, but this report here, I mean, this is a photograph of September 29th. That is exactly 2 days before the shooting. And it's of her with her family in the Philippines at a cemetery commemorating, the birthday of a niece that died. But there are, accounts of her meeting with immigration officials on the 22nd, flying from Manila, Philippines, into Hong Kong. And so she was actually in the Philippines prior to the 22nd, September. So, I think what's in these documents of her being with Paddock 2 days before the incident, and the busser speaking with Paddock and so forth, either the busser mistook Marilou Danley for somebody else, or it's just a flat out mistake. I don't know, but so that's one of the mistakes, and let's just play it and go from there. And then here, before I play that, I'll read from, this is Jesus Campos's handwritten, quick account of what happened. Let me play this first.
Hours, and there are some new details in these documents, including location of Marilou Danley, the suspect's girlfriend, just before the shooting, and a man who claims he had a conversation with the suspect just before the shooting. A new glimpse into the seemingly normal behavior of Stephen Paddock just before the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history. A busser at Mandalay Bay said she served Paddock and his girlfriend, Marilou Danley, on Friday, 2 days before the shooting. Police were very interested in the couple's actions. The investigation revealing casino staff knew Paddock to be short tempered, often screaming for no reason. The statements today also revealing some insights into Paddock's mental state. Particularly, Hurricane Katrina seemed front and center. A man interviewed by police told investigators Paddock would carry on about anti government stuff that included FEMA camps and the 2005 disaster. That was just a dry run for law enforcement and military to start kicking down doors and confiscating guns, the man quoted Paddock as saying. Also, in the documents, a British visitor claims he had a conversation with a man who he thought was Paddock the night before the shooting outside the Luxor. He says the person was talking strange, making biblical references and telling stories about how God would come down and save men down on their luck. Another man claims the day of the shooting he encountered a man who said to say a prayer for what's about to happen tonight and then asked how to get a ticket to the festival.
Okay.
And so coming up at 6:30, we are still going through these
All right. And, in fact, there's things mentioned in that report that aren't even in this report here. They're still just, combing through the documents and stuff like that. So, but it's definitely very interesting. Okay, man. All right. And I'm literally just was trying to upload this video, preparing it and editing it, and I'm seeing more to the Marilou Danley thing. And I still think it's a mistake, but I'm willing to acknowledge that, it's a glaring, huge hole. And this is why, they didn't want these things to be public. I mean, it's because there's just huge problems here. All right, so it says special agents and local police talk to everyone from bussers to executive casino hosts to find patterns and mannerisms. With only a few exceptions, Marilou Danley was constantly by his side, and this goes to the report that I just played. A busser at the noodle shop at Mandalay Bay said she helped serve Paddock and Danley at noon at table 202 on September 29th. And I showed you the picture right here. This is September 29th of her in the Philippines. So, I don't know. And the Friday before the shooting, September 29th, she knew little about the couple beyond them getting water and hot tea. She identified Danley in detail, tied up hair and beautiful makeup, wearing a jean t-shirt and a white tennis skirt. Her, he recognized her. He recognized her in the picture because she saw the white in the roots of her hair and had pegged her as Filipino. You know, I mean, they're rushing in their reporting here because at one point it's a he who's the busser, and the next point it's a she. I think it's a she. Okay. Again, let me repeat. He recognized her in the picture because she saw the white in the roots of her hair and had pegged her as Filipino. I don't focus too much on him, the busser said. I was looking at that lady. Women, we criticize each other sometimes. Law enforcement asked the woman to give a percent certainty, 10%, 75%, 50%, but all she would say is when she saw a photo on television that she had seen them before. And it continues. Until now, it was believed that Danley was in the Philippines before the shooting. A spokesman from the Bureau on Immigration in the Philippines had said in October that Danley had entered the country on September 15th and again on September 25th, traveling on an Australian passport. On September 25th, Paddock had arrived at the Mandalay Bay and changed his registration on September 28th, so Danley's name was included. The statements from casino employees largely back up the narrative. When he was on the casino floor, he was skilled, etc. And it continues. And that's the end of the description of Danley. It's a big question mark. I don't know. I mean, my guess would be that it's just a different woman. I don't know. I don't know. Let me keep going. also the statement. Let me just quickly read from it and put myself down here. So this is Jesus Campos. This is handwritten. I think this is the night of. Maybe not. Maybe it was because they interviewed him. I think on the fourth on the 32nd floor. They brought him up there to kind of go through what happened. I don't know if that's what this is from or if this is from the night of. I don't know. So, but it says on on Sunday, October 1st, 2017, at approximately 2200 hours, I was responding um, to an SOS to not SOS room using store stairwell, attempting to open door on 32nd floor, 100 wing. It was blocked. Of went down, blocked off. Went down a floor to use another wing's stairwell, approaching room 32 135. Shots were fired as I was leaving, and I got hit on my left calf. Called for backup, and security dispatch sent armed security with shift manager. I think that's armed. Responded, and I was evacuated and went down to baggage area uh, where SWAT cleared area. Then got medical treatment. Uh, four Metro officers first responded before I was evacuated. Then SWAT. Okay. All right. I don't know why he did this, and I mean, I have ideas, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I think I know what happened that night, though. I do. I mean, I have a very firm opinion of it, and I think it was just him. I think he had planned to shoot the tanks, blow up the tanks, and do that before anything else, and then maybe shoot on the crowd too. That was part of the plan, but blow up those tanks. That was his primary target, which would force the crowd to move towards him, and basically would just allow him just to mow them down, you know, as they run into right directly into the fire of his weapon. And things got screwed up when Jesus Campo showed up, and that kind of screwed up his hurried it up. Then the tanks didn't blow, and it was just way harder to hit those tanks, than he anticipated, and they didn't blow up. And basically, he moved on to the next phase, thinking I'll go back to the tanks, and I'll go back there again and try after I've shot at people. I'll go back to that. So he opened the window in room 134 first, and took shots on the tanks. They didn't blow, and he's being hurried in his plan. So he moved on to phase two of shooting at the people from 135, and he goes into 135 and blows open the window there, starts shooting on the crowd and so forth. But what he didn't count on, and this I know a lot of people disagree with this, and I'm telling you why. One of the things that bother me about this is why did he stop? Why didn't he keep going? And the reason he stopped is because really the objective was those tanks. And once he got locked out of 134, because he didn't anticipate him opening the second window in 135 was going to cause that trap to close that door. I know a lot of people don't think that happened. I do. And once that happened, he was locked out of 134, and he couldn't go back in there to take his second chance at the tanks, which he was planning on doing. And after that, it was it. He was toast, man. I think, I think literally those calculations, that I think he was on his phone. He might have been literally sitting on the floor right there, on his phone, trying to draw up the calculations, um, you know, to shoot the tanks from 135 because he hadn't planned that ahead, and now he was screwed because he was knocked out. And but it was hopeless, because he had already taken attempts from 134, which he had planned on. He either had the calculations in his head, whatever, he just knew it was over, and he just blew his head off from there. And that's why, I forgot to mention that Doug Papa was saying in his presentation, in his interview, there were no 308s, spent 308 cartridges in 135. They were all in 134. you know. So that's what happened, in my opinion. Let me pick up things that I didn't mention in my brief little thing of what happened. Well, one, also, the reason he was screwed, even though he was still trying to, he's trying to figure out the calculations of how he hit those tanks from 135. Now that he's locked out of 134, he didn't have, even though he had 308 cartridges, and according to Doug Papa, he had magazines full of 308s, but he didn't have the long rifles with the scopes, and he knew that he wasn't even able to hit it from 134 with them, or he struggled. He knew he was done. And that's when even though he made a feeble attempt maybe to figure out the calculations, and he's, panicking, he knew it was over and he was toast. That's one. Two, that's why the hammer is in 135, on the floor there, because he opened 134 first. Then he moved into 135, opened it there with the hammer there, dropped the hammer, and that sucked that door closed, and he was locked out of 134. Three is I agree with UFO Hunter UK, Mr. Hunter UK. I like UFO Hunter UK, the person and the name. And that is Jesus Campos in that stairwell area. In that is great find, awesome find. And it is him. That's him. That's the shape of his body. That's his movement. And he was on that hallway. So basically, if there was another person in 134 with Paddock helping him that managed to get out of there, uh, uh, Paddock would be Campos would be dead. There's no way that these people would kill 58 people, wanted to kill more people, and wouldn't have killed him to escape. There was no other person, in my opinion. It was just Paddock. And if there was another person in 134 to get out of there, Campos would be dead and wouldn't have been in that stairwell, wouldn't have been on that floor. I believe he was there. I believe, even there's mistakes in his account, it happened that way, basically. And that's it, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. And give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.